Okay, well, that's not a good start. Let me get started. Hello, I'm Douglas Roran, garden curator at Juniper Level Botanic Garden and Plant Delights Nursery. There's always lots of questions about how to overwinter an elephant ear. The most common elephant ears are Colocasias. This is actually an Alocasia. There's also Leucocasia and Xanthosoma. The ones that are hardy in zone 7 disappear when we've had a frost. We had 3 mornings of frost last week, and it burnt all the foliage off. Now that the leaf stalks are exposed, the next time we have frost, maybe next week, they'll get cut to the ground, at which point they will be out of sight all winter. Here in the Piedmont of North Carolina, specifically Raleigh, North Carolina, Zone 7B, we tend to not ever get much frost in the garden. In a cold spell, it might freeze overnight, an inch or so, but not freeze thoroughly and then thaw out each day. And because of that, the tubers of elephant ears generally come through the winter. Now, we might think of these as bulbs, but I'll put it in quotes, the bulb on an elephant ear is actually a tuber stem. And as the stem, it tends to grow up out of the ground. And then over the course of the winter, it'll get cut to ground level by freezing temperatures. And I'm quite certain that what we're seeing here is a year ago, winter of last year, this tuber stem had grown a bit above ground level and then got cut to the ground. And this thing that I'm calling a bulb, but is technically a tuber stem, is just like any other stem. When you pinch out the tip of a stem, the side buds that had remained dormant all along suddenly are no longer prevented from growing by the chemicals in the terminal buds, so all these side buds will start to grow. So instead of one big shoot, you'll have a lot of side shoots. You see that one that's a very active bud that if summer continued forever would soon have top growth. But there's these other little nubs on the tuber that will come into growth now that the terminal bud has been eliminated. Well, it has a new terminal bud in this summer's shoot. And if you wanted to make a lot more of them, instead of just replanting this one, you could chop it into smaller pieces, just like you cut up a potato when you're planting potatoes in the vegetable garden. As long as each one has a bud, any part of this tuberous stem will grow. So how to overwinter elephant ears in a cold climate? One, if you do nothing at all, it's still likely that they will overwinter. If you want to increase the likelihood of them overwintering them, then put several inches of mulch on top of them. Tree leaves, nice coarse wood mulch, pine straw, whatever you have on hand, and that'll afford them a greater degree of protection. You can also dig them and keep them indoors in a frost-free location. You have 2 options then. You can pot them up and grow them as a houseplant, and normally you would have a nice big tuber. You can just store those dry all winter. Again, in a frost-free location, you can put them under the kitchen sink or some out-of-the-way place like that, and they should be fine and ready to plant out in the spring. If you overwinter them indoors, then when you plant them out after the chance of frost is past, they'll be much bigger, faster at that point than if they've suffered through a cold winter and they're struggling to come back. But either way, by the time summer turns nice and hot, they'll be great big plants again in the garden. And I think most people understand that the elephant ears are also, they're the exact same plant as taro. In North America, we don't eat a lot of taro, but it's one of the top 5 sources of calories as far as food crops around the world. So really important starchy root vegetable. And you know, all those three genera I mentioned are eaten. If you're tempted to try them at home, just understand that they have to be cooked before they're edible, because the oxalic acid in the tuber is deactivated by cooking, and it's only after cooking that they become edible. So really fun plant for the summer garden. I don't think anything looks more summery than the huge leaves of an elephant ear. Certainly thrives in sun, loves moisture. You can try them in shade, but just remember that if it's dry shade, they're going to grumble and not make a very good show. But shade with adequate moisture, and you should get a good display as well.